Hey guys, it's Emma, and today I'm going to be talking about all of the books that I finished in the month of April. Unfortunately, I had to return some of these books back to the library, so I will be showing pictures of some of them rather than actual physical copies of the books. April was honestly a mixed bag as far as the amount of books I liked, the amount of books that I didn't like, and books that I thought were just okay. I really made progress with my January most anticipated list. I will link that video up above and down below for you guys, but yeah, four of the books I'm going to be talking about today are actually on that list, so let's get right into it. The first book that I finished was What Lies in the Woods by Kate Allen Marshall. This book is a mystery thriller that's about a girl who was stabbed while playing with her friends in the woods as a teenager. She and her friends went to court and ended up putting a man behind bars for this stabbing. But then later on, once all the girls are grown up, one of them wants to come clean about what really happened in the woods that day all those years ago. I actually read this book in about a day. I was entertained by it, obviously, because I kept wanting to read it to see what happened next. But I actually finished it towards the beginning of April, and honestly, there isn't too much I have to say about it. I don't remember a lot of the characters' names, and there is nothing that super really stands out to me. I do remember that I was pretty much spot on as to who were involved in this. However, there was this one part of the twist that we learn about before all is revealed, and that particular twist I didn't see coming. But the all is revealed twist I did totally see coming, and I honestly don't like it when I can predict what happens. Also, there is romance in this book, which honestly just made me roll my eyes. So, yeah, not a whole lot to say about this book. I just thought it was okay. The next book that I finished was A Fire Endless by Rebecca Ross. This book is the second book in her Elements of Cadence trilogy, so I honestly can't say too much about the actual content of the book, except for the basic. It continues the story of our characters from A River Enchanted, which was the first book in the series, but I'll leave a link to two of my videos where I give a brief synopsis of what A River Enchanted was about. I'll go into more detail of that there because I've talked about this duology in quite a few number of videos at this point. But it's basically a fantasy story about a bard member named Jack, and in this world, the spirits are worshipped by means of playing music to them. It's honestly an amazing duology, and I was so pleasantly surprised when I read these books. I did not expect to love them this much. They were well written. I love the characters. I will definitely be reading more by Rebecca Ross in the future, but A Fire Endless in particular, I think was a great ending to this duology. The next book that I finished was Diary of a Void by Emily Yagi. This book is a book in translation from Japanese, and it's about a woman named Miss Shibata who pretends to be pregnant in order to gain more respect from people at work and just society in general. The way I describe this book is that this book made me want to go to sleep, but not in a bad way. It wasn't because it was boring and it made me tired, though I have seen criticism of this book that it was boring, but it is very atmospheric, I could say. There are descriptions of things happening, of things like cooking, walking, observing, and I don't know, there were just scenes that reminded me of comforting and quiet scenes from an anime. That's the only way I can describe it. There was a lot of interaction with other characters in this book as well as descriptions as to what Miss Shibata is up to. I would almost call it a slice of life book because it's like a diary, as the title of the book suggests. There are some awkward translations in this book, but that obviously isn't the fault of the author or the translators. If I'm being completely honest, though, I was a little confused at certain points in the book, particularly towards the end, because I wasn't sure what was reality and what wasn't. And honestly, if I hadn't read the summary of the book beforehand, at the beginning of the book, at some points, I would have had no idea that our main character was actually pretending to be pregnant. I wouldn't recommend this book for people who are very plot driven readers. However, this book was really short, and I think that's why I didn't mind so much the lack of action at times. I really did enjoy this book. The next book that I finished was The Villa by Rachel Hawkins. I want to start this off by apologizing and correcting something I said in my January most anticipated video. I was under the impression that the author of this book was the same author of The Girl on the Train. I should have done more research on it, but I didn't, so I apologize. But I realized immediately that they weren't the same author because the tone and voice of the villa is so much different than The Girl on the Train. This book is told in both timelines. One is the point of view of Emily, who lives in modern day and is going to a girls' trip with a friend of hers who she recently reconnected with. They decide to go to this villa in Italy. Mary stayed at the villa, the same one that Rachel and her friend are going to, back in the summer of the 70s. During this point in time in the summer of the 70s, one of the guests that is with Mary ends up dead. So we're thrown into Emily trying to figure out what really happened. There are some chapters that are even told in the form of podcasts and newspaper articles. While this isn't the best book I've read, I gotta say I really did enjoy it. I really enjoyed the narrator's voice. I enjoyed the mystery, and I loved the fact that there was not a forced romance. The ending for me left something to be desired, but I definitely enjoyed the ride to get there. And if you like mystery thrillers, I would recommend this book. The next book I finished was Do I Know You by Emily Wibberley and Austin Sigmund Broca. This book was super high on my most anticipated list, even though I am not a huge fan of romances. But then again, this book is more so a fix our broken relationship type of book. The premise of this book is we have our couple, Eliza and Graham, who, even though they've only been married for 5 years, have a really broken marriage. They don't communicate with each other, things are awkward between them. So for their 5th-year wedding anniversary, they go to this resort and accidentally get introduced to each other by this guy named David, and hoping that it will help them reignite the spark in their marriage, Eliza and Graham decide to play along and act as if they just met each other. I'm going to be completely honest, I was super disappointed in this book. The premise is honestly super interesting and I was really intrigued by it, but for the most part, the book was less about the plot and more about being in the characters' heads. It's told from both Eliza and Graham's point of view, and this book is the prime example as to why I don't care for books that are told from multiple points of view, because we hear both characters' thoughts on every single situation after they happen. It was honestly really dense and boring, barely had a plot at all at times, it seems. Oh, and Graham constantly talks about being a lawyer, and it is super annoying. But yeah, if you would like to know more thoughts about what I think about this book, I'll put a link to my book blog down below. I did write a review about it. Unfortunately, the last book that I finished in April was also a huge disappointment, and this was Spice Road by Maya Abraham. This book is about our main character, Imani, and her journey to bring her brother, who is believed to be dead, back home from a city that up until recently many people in her town didn't even know existed. Her brother went there to use the magic that their people can do, which is derived from tea, to help fight colonizers. So in this book, Amani pretty much has to choose between her loyalty to her brother and her loyalty to her people, because sharing the secret of the magic that they can do is obviously against the law. I was looking forward to this book, I think mostly because based on the description that we were given, it was giving me very much so the Ivory Key vibes that I was so interested in, even though I really didn't like the book, The Ivory Key, once I read it. So I think part of me was hoping that I could get out of this book what The Ivory Key lacked, but that didn't really happen. I'm not exactly sure what to say about this book because I don't know, I just don't have a lot to say about it. It didn't really interest me. I wasn't a fan of our characters except for maybe Quian. I'm really hoping I didn't butcher that. I probably did, and I'm sorry. I think I've come to realize that I actually don't like books that are about a journey to somewhere, because 9 times out of 10, I tend to find them super boring. I'll link a video up above and down below where I talk about what I don't like about the Ivory Key, as well as another book called The Starless Crown that was also about a journey to somewhere, if you're interested in that. But yeah, otherwise, Spice Road pretty much had an enemy to lovers romance in this book that I wasn't a fan of. And Taha, the love interest, is 1 minute super sweet to Amani, and then the next minute is being a complete jerk to her, and that is actually putting it lightly. Not going into spoilers, but at the end of the book, he does something that is pretty much a jerk move. And I think there are even hints of a love triangle that may come to fruition in future books, possibly, and I am just not here for that. The writing in general is very dense, and I found myself skipping over a lot of scenes, particularly the hiding scenes, the chase scenes, the sneaking around scenes, all of which are usually in these sorts of stories that take place over the course of a journey. And like I mentioned before, I'm just not a fan of that. So those are all the books that I read for the month of April. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know down below if you read any of these books and what you thought about them, or let me know how your reading went for the month of April. I will leave a link to my book blog down below, so please check that out if you're interested, and I hope you guys have a great day. Bye!